Hey guys, welcome to the second video in the speech writing series. Today our focus will be on the actual speech writing process as well as editing. Sometimes when I have to write a speech or a script, it can be really difficult. Like when I was writing out this script for this video. The thing is, there are many ways that we can alleviate these issues of when we're trying to write out our ideas and we can't find the words to explain it, or we can't seem to organize it in a way that can interest our audience. Today, I will be sharing with you some tips and tricks that I learned to help the writing process become easier and more fun. The first thing I really want to stress to all of you is the importance of outlining your speech before you start writing it. Outlining can be immensely helpful because it lets you put down all your ideas in an organized fashion that you want to keep them in your speech. This can help so much because you won't have to go back and delete large portions of your speech that you wrote because you thought it would be cohesive, but it wasn't. Because when you outline your speech out, you already know what you want to talk about. You have already organized it in a way that is meaningful for you and your audience. Therefore, the speech writing process just becomes so much easier. And for me, it's especially helpful. This helps me not run off on different tangents on ideas that I didn't even want to talk about in the first place. It helps me stay on track because I already know what topics I want to talk about. I already have the evidence that I want. The way I outline my speech is that I start by writing my title or whatever topic I'm writing about. Then I'll write out my attention getter, followed by the thesis, then my three main body paragraph points. And then below each body paragraph, I'll have a few bullet points of the specific evidence as well as the sources that I got them from. So basically, I have most of my speech written out. I have my attention getter and my thesis, which are the main parts of the introduction. And then at the same time, I know what I want to talk about in each of my body paragraphs, and I already have the evidence set out. This has helped my speech writing time lower dramatically because I already know where I want to go, and it doesn't take a long time to think about it, then delete, then rewrite, and then delete again. And it's so much more helpful. My next tip is to take breaks in between writing each paragraph. If you're like me, then on a good day, your attention span is at most 10 minutes, which can get really distracting, especially when you're writing a really long speech. When every second there seems to be something in the room that catches your attention rather than writing your speech. And before you know it, you've walked into the kitchen, grabbed a snack and some water, and then you're sitting back down at your laptop watching YouTube. And then an hour has passed and you only have what you had written down before you decided to take this small detour. It can be really frustrating when you can't seem to concentrate on what you're doing. And then you realize that you've wasted so much time contemplating what you can do to alleviate this boredom that you've developed, and then you get yourself off track. What I like to do in order to alleviate this is to take breaks in between each paragraph. This gives my mind some time to rest, and at the same time it gives me motivation to get to the end of these paragraphs, to give me a checkpoint to meet. And I limit the time of my break so then I get straight back to writing and then my mind is set on the next checkpoint. This can really help you to develop the motivation to finish writing that speech, but at the same time it won't be too burdensome. And I know that sometimes when you don't take breaks, the quality of your writing decreases as you go on. But with breaks, you can refresh yourself over and over again, so then your writing quality will stay consistent. And it won't start sounding like a third grader was writing the speech by the end. The third tip I have for you is to save adding in your stylistic elements and fancy vocabulary until the end. This is because you don't want to derail your train of thought that has to pertain to your argument or your informative purposes, just because you want to find a synonym for the word good.
Elephants.
Save these for the end so then you can keep the two processes separate. And I feel like when you really isolate each one, it really gives you time to focus and make them stronger. The quality will turn out better because you weren't worried about another one while you were focusing on the other one. It really helps you to focus on it and make the quality better. So save adding in the stylistic elements and the fancy vocabulary until you have your ideas already written down. Then go back and add them in. This can also be helpful for revision purposes because in order to figure out those places where you can add in these elements, you have to go back and reread, which helps you catch small typos too. Lastly, let's focus on editing. This is probably the most crucial part of the entire process because it helps you to catch those little errors before you give your speech. It helps you to proofread to make sure when you give that speech it's as perfect as it can be. The first thing that I do when I'm editing is I put it through a grammar and spelling checker. Usually I decide to use Grammarly just because it's so easy to use and so versatile. It helps to get your grammar errors and your spelling errors all in one. Then after I put it through a grammar and spelling checker, the next thing I do is I read it out loud to myself. And I try to look for areas where the flow is not as good. When I find a place that kind of seems bumpy because it's a wordy sentence or it's a phrase that's worded really weirdly, I take the time to look into how I can make that better, how I can make that area more fluid. And then I keep moving through the entire speech doing that. Finally, after I feel as if it's a perfect speech, I'll read it to someone else, usually my parents, and I'll ask them for a second opinion. This can be really helpful because there might be things that you don't realize that someone else might see when they hear your speech. So it can be really helpful to get a second opinion. And then after all the editing is done, you'll have a perfect speech ready to be performed. Well, that's it for today. Thank you guys for watching, and if you want more public speaking aid, you can watch my other videos, or you can go to my website that's linked down below and you can find a ton of helpful articles. Thank you guys once more, and I'll see you next time.